Hello, and welcome to Conversations Worth Your While, a show in which I chat with authentic, heart-centered experts about interesting topics to spark, inspire, and motivate personal and professional change. This conversation is worth your while if you'd like to increase the loyalty factor at work. And that means how loyal you feel to your organization. It also could be about increasing the loyalty factor among your staff. And we want to do this because we want to decrease turnover and develop the talent that we have in our organizations to create happy, satisfied workforces, because they are who move the organizations towards their missions, toward their visions, toward their values. I'm Linda Bucher. I'm a speaker and a master certified life coach. And after living the life of a chameleon and feeling like a victim for 45 years, I finally discovered who I am. And I connected with my passion and my purpose, and I reinvented my life to align with my true self. I've become a happier, a more confident, more fulfilled person because of it. But most importantly, this transformation has resulted in me unleashing my gifts into the world. And my mission is to help you do the same in your life, because you have important gifts to give to the world. You have a splash to make, and you can't do that until you become clear on your purpose, until you harness your gifts and align your energy and your direction and free yourself from the obstacles that want to hold you back. So let's talk about how to get you out of your own way and back into alignment. If you want to do that, schedule a free 20-minute clarity session with me. I'll put the link in the show notes, and it's https://makeasplash.youcanbook.me. But today, let's get back on topic. I have the pleasure of being joined by Matthew Burr of Burr Consulting LLC. And Matthew is making positive ripples in a very unique way. He is passionate about people and organizations succeeding by aligning their needs and their missions. So the organization, the people, the needs, the mission, they all need to be in alignment. So Matthew, thank you so much for being here. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you do and who you serve and why you're so passionate about it?
Yeah, no, appreciate you having me on the podcast today, and always happy to join in and share what we're doing at Burr Consulting LLC. And yeah, again, it's driving HR strategy to really align with the needs and mission of any organization. I primarily work with small organizations, small to medium sized, and work on not only the HR compliance piece and the employee handbooks and all that fun stuff that we deal with on the HR forefront at this point, but also a lot now recently with the coaching and mentoring of executives down to entry-level leaders, and trying to again proactively address some of the issues that I see in the workplace related to turnover, conflict management, accountability, workplace communication, and looking at ways to take what I've learned over the last 16 or 17 years working in the HR field, and really proactively set organizations and people up for success. I mean, you got to remember that your people are your biggest asset, your biggest liability. And what are we doing as leaders to help evolve and develop our current workforce as well? So,
well, it's a very beautiful thing that you're doing. So we're all leaders. So I know the listenership of this podcast are lifelong learners. That's what everyone has in common. We love to learn about lots of different things. That's why I bring so many different topics onto the show and so many different leaders in their own right. And so we're at least the leader of the thing we're working on. If we're not in a management position, that doesn't mean we're not leaders. We're leading by example. We're leading by how we show up in the world, by how we show up at work, and how we show up at home as well. So let's talk a little bit about loyalty, because when people are unsatisfied and unhappy, that loyalty factor goes down. It goes down in our personal lives. We know that for sure when it happens with the relationships, and it happens at work as well. So let's talk about this loyalty factor. What are your viewpoints on loyalty and how it pertains to helping humans and organizations to be more successful?
right. And again, I think that you look at any type of organization, we're investing in people when we hire people, right? I mean, sometimes it takes 6 months to fill certain roles. So there's a tremendous loss in productivity. There's a tremendous loss to the organization when we have continuous churn in positions, continuous churn in departments, or not being able to fill positions at all, right? We're losing some of that. And I think when we talk about loyalty, we talk about employee engagement and satisfaction. We are recruiting, retaining, and growing not only the workforce, but also evolving the organization. I think there's opportunity to continue to look at ways to do that. And, in any organization, if you can find that engagement and that loyalty, I think you have tremendous, there's tremendous value and frankly, opportunities there to not only recruit, but also grow talent globally at that point. I mean, you look at certain surveys now where you've got Gen Z potentially turning over jobs 33 times or 30 times throughout their working career. That's hard to keep people more than 18 to 24 months. So, I mean, again, we've got to kind of look at things we're doing in the workplace. How do we continue to pivot and make it a satisfying place to work and have people remain loyal to us? Because again, you train somebody for 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, and then they're out the door being promoted to your competitor. You just lost all that knowledge, skills, and abilities in 2 weeks, right? I mean, so those are things you've got to kind of take serious and say, where can we get better as organizations and organizational leadership for sure?
Yeah, that's a really staggering statistic. When I got out of college in like 1985, so it was a long time ago. And back then it was like, where do you find a job where you can park your butt and stay there? Yes, you expected to grow with the organization, but you thought long term, you thought, where's a great place to work that I can work? And I worked at my first job for 20 years in that. I did change departments. I did get promoted, right? But it was 20 years. So it was kind of like we weren't even thinking about loyalty or satisfaction way back then. We were thinking about, oh, where can I stay gainfully employed, right? And now people are different. Now satisfaction and life balance are really important factors. And life balance wasn't really a thing. No one was talking about it. It was kind of expected to be a little out of balance. And now people want more. They want to feel good about what they're doing. They want to feel fulfilled about what they're doing. All of my clients come to me when they don't know what's next. That's one of the big, they're like, I don't think I want to be where I am. And I remember having this client. She was an executive, and she was the only female executive on the floor. And she said, I seem to get like the crap work. I don't know how that happens. Is it because I'm a woman? I can't be sure. Or is it just me? Is it just that I'm not, doing well? But she got promoted all the way to that level. So that was huge. And we had to do a lot of work inside to discover who she is, to build her own confidence in who she was, and to cultivate her own leadership, the internal things that need to happen for us to show up as good leaders. And when that happened, what was beautiful is instead of saying, she came to me like, what job should I get next? Because she was ready to leave. And she came to me and she was like, it was like the Pina Colada song, like, oh, it's you. I love my job. I love this organization. She changed things within herself to cultivate that leadership inside of her, she recognized that loyalty factor that she had. She recognized how to show up differently at work. And then she loved her job. And as soon as she started showing up different, everybody started treating her different. So we have within us what we need to make our work the way we want it, to show up in a certain way, to become leaders in our own rights, because we all have that leadership inside of us. So I thought I would just share that. Okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, I think that sometimes the grass isn't always greener on the other side of the fence. I think, at times we think it is. And organizations to an extent, I think, have gotten away from succession planning and developing employees. And I think we have to get back to some of that as well in order to not only recruit, but grow talent and reinforce that loyalty, that psychological contract of lifetime employment. That was really gone before I got in the workplace. I mean, so those days are over. There are no more, very rarely do you see pensions and things like that keep people there for 40 years. We've got to kind of reinvent what that looks like for sure.
Right. So let's talk about ways to increase the loyalty factor at work. So you and I were talking earlier before we got in the air, and we just quickly identified 5. So we're just going to have a conversation about those 5 things. And we'll kind of go through it a little quickly, but let's see if we can pick out a couple of gems, you from the pragmatic side of the world and me as a master life coach from the mindset. side of the world, because those both are components of every challenge that we have as an organization and as humans, and both of those components are in every solution. So number one was two-way communication. Let's talk a little bit about that. I'm going to let you go first.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's active and effective listening, right? I think communication is a two-way street. We need to be open to having those conversations, not only in our professional life, but personal life, and really actively listening for the emotion and responding in a way that shows that we do care and that we are understanding, and frankly, following through if we're committing to things as well. I think a lot of times, what I run into in organizations is people just teeing up a response to a communication. It's like, no, pull the emotion back out of it. Let's listen to what's going on and then respond after we've heard what needs to be heard, and making sure we're making effective either solutions or effective communication. Loop closure is another thing that comes along with that. Closing that loop of communication is another component of really effective communication skills really throughout life at this point. So
yeah, I love that you brought up stripping out the emotion. That's easier said than done for most people. We bring our emotions with us. We bring them from home. Our own personal insecurities and fears are coming along for the ride, no matter where we go. And so that it has to be a practice. It's not just something you can do just immediately. It's a practice to think, to recognize, become aware, what am I feeling right now? As this person is communicating this to me, what am I feeling? If I'm feeling offense, something to note is offense is taken, it's not given. Usually you are rarely giving offense to somebody. You're not trying to offend people. No one's trying to offend you. Offense is taken, not given. So we need to think about, why am I taking offense? What is there some underlying trigger? Now, we don't always know what that is because it's subconscious much of the time. But the fact that we're feeling an emotion about something that means that whatever that thing is trying to come up. Okay. So we can just log that, because say we're at work, we're in the conversation with our boss. We can't be like, oh, let me just sit down and see why I'm feeling so emotional right now. We don't have the time to do that, but we can put a pin in that and go home and actually do some work and say, wow, why did that trigger me? What was he really trying to say? Or what was she really trying to get across to me? And then the repeat back is a second component of that. Once you can say, okay, that's an emotion, I'm going to put that aside because they're probably not truly attacking me. I'm feeling under attack, but that's probably not what's happening. What can I really hear? And you can check it. You can say, are you saying this? Let me get this straight. Are you saying this? Help them to clarify, because what's said and what's meant and what's received are not always the same thing. So we need to be aware of this in every conversation, whether that's at home or in the workplace. Go back and be self-reflective and say, wow, why did that trigger me? Do that later when you get home and ask for clarification. So restate what you think that person's saying. That is really, those are important communication skills, no matter who you're communicating to. So thank you for that. That's beautiful.
They're also open to feedback too, right? There's always opportunity to improve. So we need to be open to feedback and actually accepting feedback as well. So
right. Because we're not always successful when we do things. You're absolutely right. Like the feedback is constructive. We're not truly being picked on. Maybe we're picked on as a child, and then that's why we're carrying that trigger around. But we're not being picked on at work. It's very uncommon. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. And that's a whole nother problem that I know you help organizations solve. But that's usually not the case. So we just want to, be a little bit more aware of what the fears and insecurities we're bringing to the table, so that we can try to leave them behind and have an adult conversation, and take this. The only way to grow is to fail, right? We fail forward. So when you're getting constructive criticism, it's like, oh, wow, you saw something I couldn't see. Thank you. It's a gift that people can see something you don't see. Now you have an opportunity to get better, which you wouldn't have if someone just told you what they thought you wanted to hear. So it's important to receive this communication in a good spirit, in a spirit of opportunity to grow. All right, let's move on to number 2. Number 2 is to increase the loyalty factor at work. There's got to be understanding of the culture. So what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think you've got to have the relationship with the workforce or with the leadership if it's an employee, right? You're maybe looking at potentially getting into to a leadership position, understanding that component of the workforce, and really does it align with the mission, vision, and values of the organization? And I think that understanding some of those areas is going to be critical as any organization continues to look for opportunities to evolve and grow. I mean, it's just an underlying factor. And I think gauging that with surveys and understanding it through assessment discussions is going to help really kind of align that and make sure everyone's on the same page.
Right. So the better you get to know where everyone's at, then you get to know where are these gaps to the mission and the vision and the values. But here's a question. Do you ever find in your work that the organization needs to change or shift their mission or vision to meet where the culture is? Because today's workforce is so different than maybe when that company was created 50 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of like the change management component I do with consulting is looking at that and making sure that those are aligned. I mean, and I think some of the feedback from employees and really, I mean, also from a higher level, like your customer, your consumer, are we aligned with what the consumer or customer wants as well? And I mean that from a nonprofit government standpoint as well. But I think those are factors you've got to take a look at and say, does the mission need to evolve? And I think those are questions you have as part of some of those surveys with your internal workforce and your your consumer as well. But yeah, I mean, and again, I think there is opportunity to even look at evolving or modifying that mission and vision for sure. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. So,
Yeah. I think what we're both talking about, and we've said this word a couple times already today, is alignment. So personally, I as a coach, I'm helping people discover who they are because I said this to anybody, you are the one you've been waiting for. All that hoping and waiting for outside circumstances and your boss to change and your employees to be better and whatever, that's all outside of your control. And you are the one you've been waiting for. So I talk a lot about, we got to learn so much more about who we are. Once you learn about who you are, then you've got to like align your self, your gifts, your talents, your focus, your direction. Because when you're all in alignment, that's how we make that splash that we're here to make in the world. That's how we make that splash that ripples positively. It's how you make that splash in your organization. So you've got to be aligned to who you are and your gifts and your talents. So that's where HR comes in. They've got to recognize these employees. Where are your gifts? Where are your talents? Maybe you're in the wrong job. Maybe you're going to shine so beautifully if we just put you over here and do this thing, because these are your gifts and these are your talents. And it's so much easier as humans for us to align our direction and focus once we know our gifts and talents and once we know that purpose. I've had wonderful bosses and organizations that let me know where I fit in the big picture. Like, here's what we're trying to accomplish. Here's our big vision. Here's why what you're doing is an integral part of it. And I've had horrible bosses that just said, do this and do that and do the other thing. And I couldn't feel that purpose, which then means I was unfulfilled. So I'm either unfulfilled because I'm in the wrong job and it's not in alignment with who I am and my gifts and my talents, or I'm unfulfilled because I don't even understand where I fit into the big picture. So knowing, the alignment is what we're talking about. We're talking about aligning vision and mission of the organization with the culture of the employees and aligning the employees to be in the best place possible to develop that talent. So everyone's successful all the way around. So it's a beautiful thing.
And I mean, and again, from like a self-reflection, emotional intelligence component, sometimes we have to look in the mirror and say, is this the right culture? Is the job the right fit for me? I mean, and those are conversations that I do have with employees that maybe it is time to go look at doing something different. I mean, and I never try to drive people out of an organization, but if it's not the right, not the right fit, I mean, those are some, really, I think, self-reflective moments and growth moments for everybody. And I mean, like you said, I've had the same thing. I've had good and bad bosses, and I've learned from both. This is the way I want to do things, and this is the way I don't want to do things. And I think there's that opportunity from internal culture to take a look at that as well, to make sure that you are aligned personally with the mission, vision, and values of the organization you're in right now. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I like that you brought that up, because this podcast isn't about just solving the loyalty problem right now today and making someone loyal or feel that loyalty when they're truly not in alignment. I mean, I left the corporate world at 45 years old because I was so far out of alignment of who I am. I was climbing the rungs, the corporate ladder, climb, and I got, maybe 3 rungs from the top, and I realized my ladder was leaning against the wrong building. This is not where I want to be. This is not what's important to me. At 45 years old, I was a widow with 3 small children. And, I was like, I'm out. Right. Well, what are you going to do? I don't know, but I'm out. And I discovered that my purpose is to be a coach and to help people to, realign with who they are and make this splash. So I've discovered that. And I took the leap at 45 years old. As my single source of income went down to 0 income for my nice highfalutin, management, salary. But I truly realigned to who I am, and I am a happier, more fulfilled person doing what I'm here to be doing. So I'm glad that you brought that up. And if there's anyone in our audience and you really, truly know that you're in the wrong place, truly know that you're in the wrong place, then you do owe it to yourself to discover what's next for you. Coaches like me, this is what we do. So reach out to somebody, or you want to talk about it, you can talk about it with me. So, okay. So let's talk about factor number 3. Understand why there's turnover, why there's dissatisfaction in jobs, and also understand where there's satisfaction, because it's always great to emulate what's working. But either way, you want to have a better understanding. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. And again, I think it dominoes back from the second one is culture and understanding. I mean, again, alignment in the organization. Have we designed jobs for people to be effective? Are they board positions? Are they challenging? Right. I mean, are we measuring as well? I think we need to do a better job of putting in metrics and key performance indicators, some buzzword from the corporate world and Lean Six Sigma. But I mean, again, those are all things that we can see, and then really understanding from an engagement standpoint and looking at those surveys and even doing those stay interviews or workplace assessments on what we're doing well and what is satisfying, what is dissatisfying, and frankly, looking at opportunities to evolve and do things differently. If people are in board positions, I mean, again, it's going to potentially lead to dissatisfaction. It could lead to internal drama. There's a lot of free time. I mean, and again, is there an opportunity to evolve a position from in office to hybrid or to remote? I mean, those are all things I think that we've got to take a look at from a work-life balance standpoint and see what we can do differently inside organizations to make it an effective model to recruit, retain, and create that culture and really that job satisfaction component as well. So.
Yeah, I like that you brought up the work-life balance. I've done quite a few talks at organizations about that. We mentioned earlier, that wasn't a buzzword. That wasn't really a thing. Because, many years ago, people weren't trying to do it all as much. Now we're really all trying to do it all. And it's super easy to get out of balance. And we might shift over to one place, and focus on it. But then we're like longing to be over at this other place. And then we shift over there and then we're longing for this. So we're always in this constant motion of trying to keep, all the plates spinning and shifting all over the place. And some people believe that work-life balance is purely unattainable, and I would disagree. What we've each got to get clear on is what's the perfect work-life balance for me. So for some people, they feel more balanced when they're at a physical workplace and they have the ride home, and then they go home and the work's gone. Because if they were working from home, it's always there and they're always going to be at it. And then they're not going to have the balance they need in their home life. So it's really unique to each one of us. But when we don't honor it, when we feel out of balance, everything suffers. Our home life suffers, our relationship suffers. We suffer at work when we're out of balance. And, I remember years and years ago working at a company where the workforce kept asking for flex time, especially the moms. We just asked for flex time. Like, daycare doesn't open until this time. I got to drive in there and then I'm going to be late for work. Please give me flex time, and, or even just like, why do I have to wake up my kids at 6 o'clock in the morning? They're small, we wanted more. And then, but the organization said, you wouldn't be able to handle that. You can't handle dress down. You can't handle flex time. You can't handle job sharing. It was a really weird dynamic. And now this is kind of like become the norm. Like, how do we, organizations today are asking, how can we accommodate so that we can get the most out of our employees? Because when they're satisfied and they're happy, then they do a really great job for us. But I know when COVID first hit, especially in some organizations, they're like, but are many people really working from home, or are they just like doing yoga? Are they really doing work? And then they put in all these controls on the computer to make sure that they're logged in. It's really a fascinating psychology about trust. And I think employees want to feel trusted.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to theory X, theory Y management, like a McGregor study from the 1950s. And it's another thing I use with my coaching is you can't have this. I mean, there's got to be a trust factor. You've got to empower people. You've got to think that people are here to, to do a good job for a good wage, right? I mean, that's that psychological contract component. But again, I think that there has to be empowerment and trust in any organization. And I think the sky's the limit to evolve and look at ways to recreate and make yourself really employer of choice, right? So
right. Okay, we're going to talk super quickly about the next two because we're getting kind of long in our talk here. So it's so fascinating. Okay, the consistency factor, that's number 4. And this doesn't mean consistently show up at work. That's not what that means. Why don't you explain about what we mean by this?
Yeah, it's a quote I use a lot, and it's people who do stuff consistently on time surpass talent and gifted. And so really what that means is, are we consistent in our process? Are we disciplined? Are we consistent in the way we're treating employees? Consistency in policies, conflict resolution, feedback, accountability. Those are all things you can think of from an internal organizational standpoint. Consistency, I think, will set you apart as an employer leader. I mean, it's the same thing in the gym. If you want to get in shape, you got to go work out all the time. I mean, you got to eat a disciplined diet. You got to be consistent. You can't eat great for a week and then go eat chicken wings every day for the next 2 weeks. It's just not going to work, right? So it's that consistency, that discipline that will, I think, set you apart from competition as well.
Yeah, and I like that you bring up consistency because as leaders, whether it's in our own family or at work, we're all leaders in some capacity. Sometimes we find ourselves not being consistent in how we treat others. We want to be fair, but we know, if I really want to get this done, I'm going to ask my favorites, right? These are my favorites. These are my go-to guys. And then we're effectively leading the other people. We're leaving them kind of behind, like, well, why aren't I getting developed? How come you're developing that person and not me? And it's just because as a boss, you're like, yeah, but I need it quick, and they're going to do it quick. So I think it's really important for us to kind of step back and say, where am I lacking? Yes, it might be quicker for me to always go to my go-to person, but that makes me not a good leader. A good leader develops all my people equally in the ways they each need to be developed. And so I think that's a really important thing. So I love that you brought that up within the consistency factor. And that's just one of those areas that you brought up. So, all right, we got to move on. We got to move to conflict resolution. That's our 5th and final way to increase the loyalty factor.
Yeah, and I mean, I struggle with this one in most organizations as I support, and not me personally, but as a human species, we're conflict avoidant. I mean, I think everyone knows that. I don't want to deal with that. Not today, not on a Friday at 4 o'clock. Look, I mean, and again, I think that what I tell anyone in the workplace, leaders, senior leaders, or developing leaders, if you can get good at conflict resolution and addressing issues proactively, not reactively, you will become a great leader. You will become a great organization, because usually when I'm called in, the crisis is exploded at that point, right? If we can get to the point where we're addressing this stuff much more on the front end, it resolves all of it, and it's going to create that culture and really help you recruit and retain the right people for your organization. So proactive conflict resolution is really, I think, the path to success for any person in life and really any organization as well.
Right. I love that you brought up, these basically, if you do the other 4 things you already talked about, you're going to have reduced conflict. So
oh, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's like super important. And conflict resolution, really, you're right. We are conflict averse as humans. We don't like it. Nobody likes it. Although I do know some very argumentative people, but that's because it's like a game for them. That's a whole different
Unless it's politics and everybody's all in on that at that point.
Yeah. But it's just like, can't we all just get along, right?
Yeah.
And the question is, how can we all just get along? So if at the beginning of any conflict resolution is to come to this agreement that neither one of us want to be in conflict. Is that true? Well, there you go. We at least agree on one thing. There's the very first thing. We don't want to be in conflict. And we are going to equally work together to resolve this conflict. When I'm coaching a person one-on-one, there's always, they might have a goal that's, in one direction, like, I don't know what job I want to have next. Like, I don't know what's right for me. So let's figure that out, Linda. So that's why they come to me. But what happens is there's obstacles in the way, and the obstacles are usually conflict related. Many of them are personal and internal obstacles, but also obstacles with relationships. That happens all the time. Like, but I can't breathe around my parents, or, my sister's always judging me, or, my best friend ghosted me, or there's always some conflict that they don't think is in the way of their goal. So it takes a while for them to bring it up, and then get them like, yeah, okay. So we got to get rid of all the obstacles, and conflicts are a huge obstacle because we can't feel good and think clearly when we're in conflict in any aspect of our lives. We drag that around. That is an undercurrent of where we are. So conflict resolution is super important, not just in the workplace, but at home and within ourselves. We are very often internally conflicted, and that's a huge thing to get through as well. So we can be our own best friends.
Conflict is inevitable, but combat is optional. It's a quote I like. I've written about it times. Look, conflict isn't the worst thing in organizations. It does drive innovation. It does drive away from groupthink and the politics in organizations. I think it's just the way we manage and address some of that conflict at the end of the day is really going to set anyone apart in life. So
beautiful. All right. Well, wow. What a great conversation, Matthew. Thank you so much for being a guest on Conversations Worth Your While. Do you have anything that you would like to share with our audience before we hang up?
Yeah, no, I mean, again, I think one thing I can offer is a free session if anyone is looking for, coaching on the HR component or any HR questions. Happy to have that. Get on the phone with me, and we're going to provide my contact information at the end of the day. And I did recently write a book on Bucher HR career, talking about building a consulting business and how that whole process is happened for me over the last 8 years, really from scratch to what it is, or from nothing up to what it is today. So it's been quite a ride over the last 8 years, but happy to have it and wouldn't want anything different at this point.
Beautiful. Thank you. I will be sure to put that in the show notes. So thank you. And once again, I'm Linda Bucher, a speaker and a master certified life coach. And I have a question for you, listener. Do you feel stuck and unfulfilled or out of alignment in your life or your career? I can help you to discover that you are the one that you're waiting for. That's it. It's you. So let's talk about how to get you out of your own way, back into alignment. And you can do that by scheduling a free 20-minute clarity session with me at makeasplash.youcanbook.me. So that's our show. Come back next week for another topic, you lifelong learners. It's going to be good. Another topic to help you grow. And be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And don't forget to click on that little bell that will remind you each time I release a new video. I'd like to thank Matthew Burr of Burr Consulting, LLC, for being here today. And I'd also like to thank you, devoted listener and lifelong learner, for sharing your time with me today. Once again, I'm Linda Bucher. And until next time, please subscribe and make sure you've made this conversation worth your while by fueling the spark that it ignited.